Let us chant Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Therwan Sannai, everyone. We continue our discussion on the Bojjhanga Ahara Sutta that we were going over from last week. Now, in your time of study, were you able to read through the sutra completely? I think we went over most parts of the sutra last week as well, but we were going through many other details that were found within the sutra. So, first of all, because this is the Ahara Sutra, let us, because we are after a week, let us come into context of what we are talking about with regards to this sutra. So we know that there are 4 types of ahara or nutrition that is taught by the Buddha, shown by the Buddha. Now, do you remember the 4?
Yes, Bhante.
කියන්න බලන්න.
කබලින්කාර ආහාර, පස්ස ආහාර, මනෝ ආහාර, විඥාන ආහාර.
Mano ahara, vinyana ahara. Now, those are the 4 types of ahara. The first one is kabalinkar ahara, which is the food that we consume, eat. The material food that we consume. The second one is, what is the second one? Kabalinkara, passa ahara.
Pasahara.
Passa ahara. Now, what is passa ahara?
Contact.
Moment of contact.
Yeah.
The moment of contact. Then what is the third type of ahara? Mano Sanchetana ahara, which is the volition, chetana. The volition, Mano Sanchetana, which is the volition that is nutriment. And then the last type is
Vinyana.
Vinyana ahara. Vinyana, we know, is a Pali term for consciousness, the chitta. The chitta. Now, when you think about it, we have one rupa ahara type, and then we had 3 types of ahara spoken of with regards to, let us say, the nama, the mind. Now, how do you understand this for yourself? There is Rupa Ahara, the first one, Kabalinkara Ahara, is the food that we consume, eat. So that is the material food. Now, the second, Pasa Ahara, Mano Sanchetana Ahara, the volition, and then Vinyana Ahara are all mind. Now, how can we understand or explain this?
So the contact would be the Vedana, whether it is painful or pleasurable or not neutral. And the consciousness as the food is the Nama, the other part, the Sankara that you have got, as well as the Sanya Sankara, those parts that gives rise to the Sankara, the proliferations, the propancas, because that's also the food, Bhante.
So, in it being called a food, nutriment for this being means that it sort of ensures the continuity the maintenance, the production, the santati of this being, of this nama rupa, mind and matter. In that, the first type of food refers to the physical food that we eat, because this physical food ensures the continuity of the rupa kanda, of the rupa, of the body, right? So this food that we consume becomes a food becomes then a condition for the continuity of the body, of the body. The body, because of the body, the mind and the body relationship can then continue when the body is able to maintain itself. Okay. The second part, which is passa ahara. Passa ahara, passa ahara, the moment of contact. At this moment of contact that occurs with every object, as a result of this contact, a feeling arises. With this feeling, craving occurs. Hence, because of this feeling, because of the contact that occurs, based upon this contact, feeling arises. And we know that feeling is one of the cornerstones of the cognitive process, the mind, because the mind clings on to whatever feeling that Dhamma gives. Arise as a result of that Dhamma arises within the mind, that feeling. If the feeling for whatever condition is good, then the mind is able to feel a sense of pleasantness. Whilst the negative gives the mind a painful or an unpleasant feeling. So, this feeling that arises based upon this feeling is how we then navigate all the future things. Hence, passa is known, contact is known as a food that keeps on giving to the arising of Vedanas, moment to moment, loving the nature of sankharas, the sankata nature, cause and effect to unfold. The third is mano sanchetana. Now, mano sanchetana refers to, we know, volition. Because of volition, what happens? Volition conditions the way that the mind arises. Huh? Volition conditions the manner that the mind arises. Now, what does this mean? When a certain volition arises, because of the strength of this volition, this moment's consciousness, and owing to the power of that volition, even future consciousnesses that arise is conditioned by this moment. Because of the strength of that volition. So that strength of volition conditions the mind, gives the mind a path to follow. Now, for example, let us say you set 6 things that you have to get through this day. Through the day, you want to do these 6 things. Now, you surely want to get it done. Because that Chetana arises, if you are unable to get the 6 things done, you might be feeling, let us say, a bit antsy, not very happy with oneself, a little bit stressed out maybe. However, whatever reaction, maybe you're relaxed about it. But regardless, what happens? Because of this change that occurs, because of this volition that happened, now that volition determines with the outcome, it conditions the state of consciousness there. Does that make sense, everyone? How volition becomes a food to the mind in the way that the mind maneuvers, right? Is maneuvered. Now, if the volition is to cause harm, then that mind, and owing to that strength of volition, other minds to come can also go on that trip of anger, wanting to cause harm. If the volition is to do something which is good, then that consciousness and minds to come can be affected by this energy of this volition. Hmm? Yes, Del. Oh,
Sorry, Bhante, to
no.
disturb. Bhante, then
Yeah.
Bhante explain moment to moment the things that come in. In this passage that you put up here, Bhante, it also refers to the three kinds, like the Bhava, the three kinds of existence, like being born in the sense world, in the Rupa Avatara, and in the Arupa Avatara.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
all greater depth there.
Yes. So in any sphere of existence, plane of existence, these aharas, these types of nutrition applies. Now, of course, there are planes that do not consume material food, right? Material food, they live, for them, the rupa aspect is not there, but the other aspects are present, right? Now, mano sanchetana ahara, in that way, because of the volition that arises, volition becomes a food for the mind in the way that the mind unfolds. Now, what kind of volitions? Then it comes to us. What kind of volitions are conditioning our mind at this moment, or even in the next moment? What kind of volitions are we proliferating, if I may use that word, saturating the mind with, proliferating the mind with? What kind of volitions are we allowing to saturate the mind, and what kind of volitions are we working to get rid from the mind? Hmm? So, volition in that sense, when shown by this particular sutra, the aharas, the volition, we train the volition to resonate with a level where we are able to now progress in the path of practice rather than for it to cause decline and decay in the practice. Does that make sense, everyone? Volition. Hmm? Training our volition. How do we interact? How does Chetana arise in our minds? What kind of Chetanas do we allow? Right? What is okay and what is not okay? What are those lines of discipline that we take upon ourselves? Hmm? All of that trains the volition. The last part is vijnana, isn't it? Now, volition nurtures that consciousness that is to arise, conditions. The vijnana, because vijnana arises, vijnana is consciousness. Vijnana is consciousness. Now, because vijnana arises, as a result of this consciousness, what happens? Because this consciousness arises, and any moment that this consciousness arises, it has an inclination that it wants to be and become. Bhavatanha, that sense of becoming is present within this consciousness. Because of this sense of becoming, when the consciousness arises, it creates or becomes a condition for the arising of the very next consciousness. That consciousness becomes a condition for the very next consciousness. Hence, when vijnana arises and when there is a consciousness, this consciousness leads to the arising of nama and rupa. Nama and rupa. Hence, the vijnana that arises is shown as a nutrient, a sense of nutriment. Nutriment for the nama and rupa to arise. For example, within when at birth, when the consciousness arises within as a result of past karma or whatever else, when the consciousness arises in this birth, from that moment itself, our karma start giving rise within this physicality that we have been reborn in. Huh? Now, because consciousness arose, what happened afterwards? Everything that comes with that consciousness now became a condition. Condition for what? Condition for the arising of nama and rupa. In this way, four aharas are spoken about by the Buddha. Now, is this clear, everyone? Do you have any questions that you would like to ask? Mhm. Now, Kabalinkara Ahara, for the sake of the practice, if we are talking about a Dhammic approach to Ahara, then Kabalinkara Ahara would be may would be something that we would deal with for we know the maintenance of the body. For the maintenance of the body. Now, maintenance of the body may with loving kindness, with loving kindness, with metta, mudita, karuna, also one can consume. Also one can consume. Now, when one consumes to develop a certain aspect that promotes nibbana or promotes the factors of enlightenment within us. The second part, phassa. The second part, phassa. How can we approach phassa through a Dhammic perspective? Dhammic perspective, Dhamsiri. Oh, do you want to say something? No. How can we approach phassa in a practical sense in that case? What do you think?
So when we have things that are very pleasant to us, sukha feelings, we won't keep on wanting them and grabbing them and feeding them so that we perpetuate them and proliferate on them. And the same way that when we have dukkha feelings also, we don't keep on rejecting and developing stories on that and saying this one did it and that one did it and self-pity and all. But bring it to upeka, balance it all the time so that neither grabbing nor either craving. So that way we can stop feeding ourselves, clinging, perpetuating.
Yeah, now phassa, phassa is a condition for the arising of feeling, right? Now, but ultimately, the ahara that is spoken of here is phassa. So you are correct. When that feeling arises, seeing and observing that feeling and trying to bring it down to upekka is the ideal position that a meditator could be in with or at a moment that feeling arises still. So absolutely correct on that. Now, if we take a step back and then focus on the ahara in question, this ahara in question is phassa. Now, phassa is contact. Contact occurs when there are objects to cognize. There are three factors that is necessary for contact to occur. One is consciousness. Now the consciousness must be there. The consciousness must be there, the physical base must be there, and there must be an object to cognize. When these three things are there, now an object can be there to cognize, a physical base can be there. Now these two aspects you don't really have much control over, really, right? The only thing that is within your domain is the consciousness. So for the moment, in consideration of the moment of phassa, for example, now sila, when sila comes into question, we stop ourselves from experiencing certain types of contact, isn't it? Right? When we are, let us say, doing our walking meditation and when we have brought our senses to the present, ignoring other impingements but keeping our attention upon this walking meditation practice that we are endeavoring to practice, at that time we bring our attention towards this walking meditation practice and cut out other types of contact that we may be impinging upon. whilst being in that upekha mentality. Upekha with the upekha. Now, there you see the passa to certain things at that moment does not arise. Does not arise. Why doesn't it arise? Because your field of awareness has shifted to a meditative object at this time. Maybe even when, for example, let us say when you're so focused on doing something or getting something done, for example, and there are other sort of disturbances or hurdles that comes to your path, because you are so determined to get this done and because you're so focused, let us say, focused, you ignore these different hurdles and you move forward. You take one thing at a time and you move forward. Now, at that moment, you can see because of the other attributes, for example, attribute of focus. Because of your strong focus, certain elements did not or were not able to come into contact with you. What kind of elements were not unable to come into contact with you? Let us say you were not putting a lot of focus into knowing what other people are saying. I'm just making up examples. Or you're not really investigating into the problem all too much, right? Why? Because your focus is cutting all of that out. Now, do you see that aspect of it? Where when there is, let us say, a person who has a certain sense of focus, an aim, a goal, nibbana, let us say peace, tranquility, cultivating kindness, whatever objectives or goals, those sublime goals that one may have, because of those elements, we cut out certain types of things that we would even come to cognize it. Remember, this is spoken of also in Indriya Bhavana. In Indriya Bhavana, where all that is cognized at the faculties, all that is cognized at the faculties, we relate to as conditioned by not one but many, impermanent in nature, and containing no self. All these impingements, that those moments of past that arise, they're transient in nature. And even with whatever object, sometimes the mind craves for the object, craves for the object. But at that moment, you can't give it the object. Let me tell you an example from, something that the bhikkhus go through often, which is now, let us say, monks may, are not allowed to listen to music, isn't it? Right? Now, the the question appears, what happens when there is a monastery and then there is a village, right? And usually when you're living in a valley or, a wide sparse area with the trees and all whatnot, the sound travels quite easy, right? The sound travels quite easy. So in the Vinaya Pitaka itself, there is this question, there is this instance of where the monastery, has all this music that reaches it from the village, right? So the monks now come to, now they can hear this sound. So the monks have a doubt arising in their mind to say, um, is, have I broken the rule? Right? So there the Buddha says, the monks when ask the Buddha says, when you hear the sound, if you make any, let us say, inclination towards the sound, to enjoy the sound, that is where you incur the precept or the break the rule, right? Break the rule, even if you hear it far away. Now here, when the monks may experience this in real life, even today, right? There, when the monk is, of course, not trying to break the Vinaya rule, not trying to enjoy the music, but then the mind at any moment, the monk tries to remain very still, very still, not to in any way go towards the music to listen to it in any sense, but to pull away from it. So you could imagine, and these are real things that happen because there are bhikkhus who try to stay very still to protect their sila, to not even shift an inch towards the music to have any sort of attraction, with any sort of attraction, I'm sorry, with any sort of attraction, craving for the sound. Hmm? For the sound. Oh, Sujata.
Yes, Bhante, just not to interfere, but
Mhm.
what about the monks who compose songs and things? That's also music,
Sujata,
isn't it?
Sujata, that is completely beyond the point because I don't think that's a discussion of Dhamma. Huh?
It's all about that,
But
but suddenly it came to my mind. They do these sort of things, and they do listen sometimes,
yes,
composing, and they'll ask for the music as well for
yes.
the composer.
So regardless, Sujata, regardless, may within the Vinaya, of course, it is not allowed, right?
Yes,
Composing music is not allowed, and it of course falls may under the precepts precepts. Hence, that is not allowed in the
yes.
precept. So coming back into the sutra, the
Sorry,
Bante,
Bhante.
oh,
Bante,
Damsiri.
Bante, I think they are not composing music. They are
Mm.
composing lyrics.
Lyrics, maybe
Lyrics.
composing music. There are
Lyrics. That
lyrics.
means pure the words and uh, poems and things like that. So it's nothing to do with lyrics. The
Yeah.
number two,
Mm.
Bhante, I like to have a few words about this uh, the pus.
Mm.
When you say when you're doing walking meditation,
Uh-huh.
you have a mind egakada,
Mm-hmm.
one pointlessness,
Mm-hmm.
to the kaya vinyanya. So
Mm.
that means practically what you get is kayang chapaticcha potabbe uppajjate kaya vinyana.
Mm.
So because you are so you keeping the pointedness to kaya vinyana, you have no other opportunity for you to activate other vinyanas
Mm.
like sota vinyani or
Mm.
gana vinyani or that,
Mm.
because that's the whole purpose of your meditation. That means
Yes.
keep the one pointedness
Yeah.
on particular object.
Mm.
So that's the main reason why you don't have other passes
Mm.
like sound
Mm.
or taste or uh, so anything else, or
Yeah.
even kaya vinyana, even the when you're concentrating on your foot touching the ground.
Mm.
So that's the sort of concentration that governs your uh, ekagata, right? So I think that's the main reason. Ekaggata is the main reason why you do not deviate your consciousness towards any other objects.
Yeah, ekagrata for sure. Ekagrata becomes a condition of one point, and there is no other object other
Mm.
than that particular object at that time. Mm. May with ekagrata also there are other elements of then satyathin or nid.
Yeah, yeah,
Satyathin adhering to
right,
the object, but
yeah,
ekagrata has a sense of deep concentration upon that specific object or whatever element within that object, whatever element that you're focusing on.
yeah.
So,
Okay,
yes, just like, for example,
yeah,
the early examples, these examples that you spoke of also, Damsiri,
yeah,
may in our meditation, whilst we do our meditation practices or even our other things that we do on the daily, all of these things are පස්සේ කියන දෙය එන්න එතන වැඩ කරනවා. Contact, of course, occurs, and because of that contact, Vedana arises. Because of that contact, Vedana arises. So completely again and again feeding the system of the present with enough of sankhara to deal with enough of sankharas to deal with, right?
Yeah.
Now, the second part, I mean, Passa, do we have any other questions with regards to Passa, right? Now, whenever this Ahara occurs, this sutra, or rather, I mean, Piyathan has drawn parallels from the Puttamansa Sutra. Now, this is talking about the nature of Dukkha Satya and the realization of that Dukkha Satya, everyone. Because it is very easy to also misunderstand these comments of Dhamma. For example, now the Puttamansa Sutra, right, gives the full definition of the 4 kinds of food along with 4 graphic similes, right? Now the first one is material food, Kabalinkara Ahara, and to Kabalinkara Ahara has a simile of a son's, Puttamansa, son's flesh. Kabalinkara Ahara is son's flesh, your child's flesh, right?
What does it mean?
Sorry, Kiana Sujata?
What does it mean, son's flesh?
Your son's flesh, your child's flesh, right? Now, the example comes from, remember, 2 parents, the simile which is given in the sutras, where 2 parents go along a desert, and they are about to die without food.
That's
And
true.
they converse within themselves, and they think, we can make another child, but we are not going to survive. The child is not going to survive alone. And they do the unthinkable. And this draws parallels with the mother having to consumes his flesh with great amount of disgust, great amount of regret and repentance, isn't it? Just imagine the amount of regret, strong regret, that those parents won't be eating the flesh, if in the context of this story, enjoying it, but rather eating it because they have to survive, let us say, right? So you can imagine the deep regret and remorse that is experienced. Just so a person experience such a type of emotion when it comes to material food. Right? Material food. What does this mean? Right? The second one is, you can see, contact, that is passa. And there is the example of a skinless cow. Very graphic, isn't it? Skinless cow.
Skinless cow.
Now, skinless cow, sun's flesh. The third one, which is mental volition, chetana, manosanchetana, a fiery coal pit. A fiery coal pit. Okay? And consciousness as food, a thief given 300 strokes of the sphere. Sphere. 300 strokes of the sphere.
Explain that, Bhante.
How can you
Please.
get 300 strokes of a sphere?
Spear is not a sphere, Bhante. Spear. Like
Spear.
spear is like a pointed weapon. So you get dashes,
Yeah.
300
So
dashes.
300 strokes are 300 times thrown forward?
No, like if you hit somebody with this, it'll cut you. So
Okay. Like,
that's the
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So let's investigate, right? The first one, material food as skin's flesh, because if a person is to know when one has craving attachment arising towards this decaying material food, that craving that arises even for that morsel of food, the amount of karmas that are generated as a result of this, the amount of sankharas that are generated by a moment of this craving. Should that person know the amount that he has amassed in this simple morsel of food, he would never eat a day in his life, therefore. That is to say, when this sankhara of liking towards this food arises, which is one of the, let us say, the, it might disturb you when we hear these words being said, but it is one of the poor human satisfactions, isn't it? We call it poor because it is so impermanent in nature. It can be so transient in nature. It can turn from good and to bad to repulsive quite fast also, isn't it? A couple of hours actually. Neither. Hmm? Neither.
Very nice.
Huh? So we see that and that attachment is based upon such a, let us say, a poor, very easily made impermanent, something which is guised also, isn't it? මෙන්න මේකට අපි ඇලිලාම ජීවත් වෙනවා. We live clinging to this. So then what happens as a result of it? What happens as a result of it? Life, let us say, when we build upon that desire, when that kind of desire grows and grows and grows, we draw closer to the to the sensuous sphere, to the sensuous world, and the karmas associated, the mud associated with that sensuous world. Isn't it, everyone? Isn't it? Because we are growing closer to that taste, to the satisfaction to the satisfaction of sensuous, the sensuous need, sensuous desire. When that satisfaction made or brought in from these rupas proliferate, then we go away from the path. That is why eka dana dana meka khanna තියෙන්නේ. Do you get what I mean? Knowing that you eat, you have to eat. So then how would you eat? Does that make sense? During times of retreat, right? During times of retreat, often in the retreats that we've been doing annually as well, every time that we go into sort of deep meditation, you often feel a sense of you having to, for example, come into the dining hall to consume food is also such a tiresome and gruesome task. Why? Because now, let us say during meditation, we are getting rid, feeling the lightness that arises from this mind that is settled and calm and not running behind the sensuous pleasures. Now, in that moment where you lunch or breakfast comes, especially lunch because you don't have any other meal after that, and you have to go into the refectory at the time, and it is gruesome sometimes to go sit and eat, because again this is satisfying the senses, or having to feed this body, feed this skandha, feed this dukkha khandha, feed this pyre of burning wood with more and more and more. But the fire consumes, and I am here feeding it. Otukota, when you know that you can get caught into it, that you can be made, that it can be, be something that can come bite you in the back in the future, you're very, very cautious, more than cautious. You do not want to feed, but you have to. Right? That is why material food is compared to that of sun's flesh, because that is how the Buddha draws parallels to the mentality of consuming that food, everyone. Consuming that food. Hmm? What do you think? I want to know. What do you think?
Bhante, but isn't that why in our retreats we do that ahara, particular thing that we read and we reflect about this food, what is the purpose of it, and from where it arose,
Absolutely.
and the gratitude you bring into it, and the impermanence you bring into it, and how it all arises and passes and becomes disgust and become mixed with the spit and all the rest of it, Bhante. So you bring the high vibrations of gratitude to the people, to the soil, to the sun from that point onwards to gradually the change when he mixes up in the spit, you never take it up and eat it again. At that point, it's before it goes.
Absolutely. When you do that recollection really meditatively, it is quite strong. But what I refer to is when your vipassana is growing, when your vipassana is strong, when your sort of anatma nature is now through the days of the retreat coming out through your meditation, now you want to get rid of those foods, if I may use the word today, those foods that are supporting this mass of suffering rather than being the one who is feeding the fire near the tail. Yeah,
Yeah,
you want to cut off its food because to, let us say, to
yeah.
starve this dukkha nature, however, we consume food, but
Bhante, but that's
we
why
have to consume food.
Bhante, you gave up the desert. Many days you just leave the desert aside because that is a thing that the sugar attracts us more. I remember many few days you just eat the salads and the things like that. And
No,
you said,
of
and
course, of course.
give away the desserts to us.
Yeah. So, this I'm talking about more sense of sangvega, movement that arises in the mind, so much so that this consumption is gruesome to do. That is why, just like that mother who completely is not entertained or does not taste anything good in this flesh because she knows this is, something just so attracting or clinging on to material food and going behind it. The Buddha sees that path down the line of samsara, that path not ending well, but only ending in dukkha. Why? Because you're craving or chasing behind the satisfaction of the five, six senses. Right? Contact as food, a skinless cow. A skinless cow. Now, what do we understand by a skinless cow? Now, contact. What if, the skin was burned? Hmm? Now, every touch would be pain, wouldn't it? Hmm? Emaneda. If your skin was, if you had burns all across, right? And then every touch is so painful, because it's literally a wound. Just so, just imagine a cow skinless in that situation, right? And being in constant pain because of what? All the contact, pus, Moment to moment, whenever a passa arises, that arising of passa is a dukkha. It's a pida. It's a burden. When you allow the mind to proliferate in a certain way or whatnot, passes arising, let us say, you're seeking revenge, you're seeking revenge, you're seeking to inflict pain or displeasure. And what happens? Now you're in that seeking. More and more passes are arising in that seeking. Do this, do this, do this. This can be done. This can be done. This can be done. This can be done. All of those passes that arise, contact, not even going into the karma, but all of that contact that arise, that arise is a burden. Is a burden. Because all of those sankharas, all of those objects, dhammas that arise as a result of phassa, again proliferate and fill the mind with 100 more conditions for suffering and dukkha. For suffering and dukkha. Hence a skinless cow, hence a person through practices like Indriya Bhavana, where they bring a sense of discipline to the Indriyas, a sense of discipline to the sense faculties, where we are able to protect and nurture the things that comes through the door of phassa or through contact. It is very difficult to do whilst living in a world with work and all of these things. It can be quite difficult because you can't often control, but what you can control from your side is a consciousness. The mental volitions that arise to a fiery coal pit. To a fiery coal pit. Now, often fiery coal pits are, you find them there. Now, during the time of the Buddha also, they will be used to perform different yagas and different rituals, isn't it? Fiery coal pits. Hmm? Isn't it? Hemandi?
Even in Sri Lanka, they do it.
Yes, yes, yes. Even in Sri Lanka.
Fire walking. Yeah.
Firewalking. Now, when mental volition arises, when a volition arises, right? Let us say I want to do whatever today. Now, from that moment of volition arising, you know that different thoughts are arising. You might mention this a number of times. You might be antsy to go. All of those things happen, isn't it? When mental volition arises for a particular thing. I want to do this. I want to make this. I want to clean the house. You know, now when that mental volition arises, it is like a fiery coal pit. Why? Because that arising of mental volition, what happens? You have to walk. You have to walk. But walking on a fiery coal pit is undesirable, more scary, fearful. So when the arising of mental volition like a fiery coal pit, right? Why? Because any time that the volition goes, what happens? You will be easily burnt.
Yes.
You can be easily burnt, right? That is why they say mental volition as a fiery coal pit, because you have a volition arising and it is like walking, right? You're walking towards whatever volition that arises. With that volition, you're walking, right? So every volition, every mental volition as food arising for the consciousness to arise, conditioning the consciousness. Now, moment to moment, more and more sankharas, more and chasing. Mhm. Because of that, it is known as a fiery coal pit. Fiery coal pit. The fourth one, a thief with 300 strokes of a spear. This is amounting to a vast amount of pain, isn't it? Vast amount of pain. Now, when the consciousness occurs, we know a consciousness occurs With its arising arises with it the Chaitasika counterparts. Hmm? Supporting, molding, making the consciousness what it is. Through the many facets of this consciousness, we know there is vitaka, there is vichara, there is adhimokha, there is effort, there is sati, there is vedana, there is sanya, perception. As such, there are sometimes 20 or 30 odd may chaitasikas, isn't it?
Yeah.
All of those that multifaceted nature of consciousness, with each facet there is the potential of grave suffering that can arise, which is, for example, a person could cling to the sanya, a person could cling to view, a person could cling to man, a person could cling to a self made of kusala or a self made of akusala, a person could cling to, let us say, cling to, or rather even more proliferate upon, let us say, make mistakes even with adhimokha, decision, virya, effort, wisdom. All of these things, as they arise, there are other so many conditions tied to these conditions that keep these conditions valiant and robust. For example, when a kusala arises, I have done a wonderful kusala today. Okay. Now, that kusala, although that kusala, of course, is something that is cherished, enjoyed, that kusala is tied to so many other conditions. Even right at this moment, when I am remembering the kusala, that remembrance is also tied to so many other conditions. Just like a chitta, and the state of the chitta is tied to so many conditions, which are tied to so many other conditions beyond it.
Yeah.
Thus, creating so many instances and facets that suffering can arise for this person. Consciousness. Because that consciousness can go anywhere. That consciousness can be or become anything. There are Maharajas who might have been quite pious and quite strong in their faith and very righteous, who, after some time having lived, fall into the hellish realms. Then there are hellish beings who one might assume may never climb out of the pits of hell, who do so and become divine, prosperous beings in such ways. Even in the human realm, we see people climbing out from places that you would never imagine and shining like the stars. And then people who are up there who are respected falling like a shooting star, isn't it? Rise and fall, this change. All of that is possible because of this consciousness arising, but the consciousness arises with so many other conditions. Now, we only spoke of, let us say, consciousness as food. It gives rise to Nama and Rupa. Nama and Rupa. With Rupas, there are even more conditions. Hmm? Even more conditions. Realizing this, the yogi, the meditator, the vipassana practitioner, realizing this not through theory per se, but through one's own meditation, one realizes or one puts away, tries to get rid of, or tries to starve out the hindrances, realizing that moment to moment it is the hindrances that arise in now defiling the mind or bringing one away from the path of enlightenment or path of peace or happiness that is there at that moment. Do we have any questions with regards to what we just went over? So the many amount of strokes that are mentioned here speaks to the multifaceted, the different subsets of conditions that are present with the arising of consciousness, with consciousness being a condition, with consciousness being a condition. Even if it is positive striving, it is still striving. If it's negative striving, it is still negative, but striving. This striving is change. This striving is change. When change has to occur, change disrupts. Disrupts what? Disrupts the peace. Because moment to moment, these disruptions wallop one after the other, moment to moment, realizing that all of these sankharas are just disruptions to the tranquil state of mind, samadhi, being with the object, letting go, vipassana, that it is a disruption. We let go, we let go, we let go, we let go. And that is what in this sutra with the Ahara Bojjhanga Sutra, starving those aspects that fuel the hindrances and feeding those aspects that lead to the cultivation and further development of the stages of enlightenment, Bojjhanga, of the Bojjhanga. Now that is what we have been, of course, that is the crux of this sutra. But this sutra is quite special. Now, did you, of course, read it in your free time? Hmm? Right? This sutra is quite special because now we've gone over food for the mental hindrances. Food for the mental hindrances. When you take an object as a subhanimitta, sign of the beautiful, of course, frequently giving unwise attention. Now, this is the mind for unarisen, lustful desire, right? Unarisen, lustful desire. Now, there was a when you see beautiful objects, right? Now, here it is talking about lustful desire, lustful desire, but anything in terms of subhanimitta and lust kama chandana, so lustful desire. So kama chanda, when you look at an object, now let us say it is a beautiful person. This beautiful person, right? When you take this person who has pleasant qualities or attractive qualities as a subhanimitta, then often frequently giving ayonsa manasikara. මේකට අපේ ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේ කෙනෙක් ඉගැන්නුවා, one of our Bhantes taught us, when you see beautiful people, when you see beautiful, attractive people, think in this way. Right? Think in this way. This is a wonderful advice, right? Think in this way, which is, how much of kusala what kind of kusala would they have done to be that beautiful? How much of kusala would they have had done, or what kind of kusala would they have done to be that attractive? Here, you establish Shraddha, right? Now, whatever kusala that they might have done, right? ඒකට then we are happy for them. ඒ කියන්නේ සාදු සාදු කියන මට්ටමට ඒ කියන්නේ ලස්සනක් දැකලා සාදු සාදු කියනවා. ලස්සනක් දැකලා you see beauty and you say sadhu sadhu because you genuinely become happy for whatever kusala that they have done in the past, further nurturing your need to do more kusala. And of course, dependent upon the monk, the greatest of kusala, right? Now, for example, they say you become beautiful when you practice metta bhavana, right? when you practice metta bhavana in your, let us say, samsara, you become beautiful. That is something that is said. I'm sure that is the same for karuna and metta, mudita, karuna, all the four Brahma Vihara. I'm sure that is the same, but specifically metta, because you're purifying the mind and, you know, wishing people the best and all of that, that has a special effect, right? Now, when you see, let us say, beauty in a certain way where you can see certain qualities that are peaceful in nature, ඒකට සාදු සාදු කියවෙනවා, you know, මෙයාගේ සංසාරේ මෙයා කොච්චර මෛත්‍රී කරලා ඇතිද? මෙයා සංසාරේ කොච්චර, how in samsara, how much of metta might they have done, or how much of kusala that they might have done. And hence nurturing your own faculties more to perform now, dependent upon the monk whether that kusala is, let us say, laukika or lokotara, now greater than all of this, right? Greater than all of this is supramundane, right? Supramundane. That beauty surpasses any physical beauty, right? That beauty surpasses any physical beauty. That beauty of mind, that trance, that lightness, that factor of enlightenment, the cultivation, that is far more beautiful. Hence, swaying your mind away from seeing things from a lustful corner to seeing things in a way that it also proliferates or saturates your mind with that kusala. With that kusala. Now, we have gone over these aspects. Now we have this not food for the mental hindrances. This part. This part. Not food for the awakening factors. And what bhikkhus is not food for the arising.
Excuse me, Bhante.
Oh, Devika.
Yes, Bhante, like under food for the awakening factors, we finished up to number 11.
Oh, not food or food.
Yes.
Not.
Under food for the awakening factors, we did 8, 9, 10.
Okay.
And we have to now today continue from 11 because I noted it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And what bhikkhus, right? Let's just refresh. Food for the awakening factors.
Yes.
The 8th one.
Yes.
And what bhikkhus is food for the unarisen of the arising of the unarisen awakening factor of Sati Sambojjhanga.
Yes.
For the arising of Sati Sambojjhanga. And for the growth and abundance of Sati Sambojjhanga, the awakening factor of mindfulness. There are bhikkhus, the bases, right? The bases for the awakening of the factor of mindfulness, right? The bases. Now, these bases, right? These bases, Sati Sambojjhanga, frequently giving wise attention to them is, this is for the arising of unarisen awakening factor of mindfulness and for the growth and abundance of the arisen awakening factor of mindfulness. Now, what are the 4 conditions? Right? The first one is mindfulness and clear comprehension, Sati Sambojjhanga. The second, avoiding of persons with confused minds, right? Avoiding of persons with confused minds. Associating with persons who keep mindfulness ready for application. Now, remember these aspects. Now, when you say avoiding of persons with confused minds, here it is talking of a person where in their mind they do not connect with people, or they do not go towards people of confused minds. Associating with those who keep mindfulness ready. Their minds go towards associating persons with mindfulness who are aware. They gravitate towards them. Inclination towards sati, right? Inclination towards sati. Those become the four conditions for the arising of sati sabbojjhanga, right? So, literally saying, being with people who practice sati, being in sati, associating people who are in sati, avoiding those who have confused state of mind, right? And has a general inclination towards sati daily. When you have come to like sati, isn't it? You have come to embrace sati, to keep sati close to you, sati being something that you want to practice. Those are the four conditions for the awakening factor of sati sabbojjhanga. The ninth one, which is the awakening factor of Dhamma Vichaya, investigation, right? Dhamma Vichaya. Now, for Dhamma Vichaya, there are 7 conditions we went over, right? Now, Dhamma Vichaya, what do you understand by Dhamma Vichaya? Dhamma Vichaya is the investigative nature, right? Investigative nature of wisdom, right? Of wisdom. This is a part and parcel of the function that is performed by wisdom that arises in your mind, everyone. Now, we went over these, but these are so important that it doesn't matter that we have to go through them again. The first one is investigative questioning, right? Investigative questioning into the different, aggregates, elements, going deeper into those questions with regards to the Dhamma. Purification of the basis, right? Purifications of your basis is purification of your personal and environmental cleanliness here. That says that when that is there, your wisdom, or your nature of the mind to solve, to categorize, to be able to sort things out becomes better, right? When you're in a clean environment. The third, balancing of the spiritual faculties, right? Balancing on the spiritual faculties. Why do you think this is? Do you want? Do you have any thoughts of what balancing of the spiritual faculties has to do with this Dhamma Vichaya? Any ideas, anyone? Dhamma Vichaya. Anoma, කියන්න බලන්න. Balancing of the spiritual faculties for Dhamma Vichaya.
Bante, if you take sometimes, if you take dana or whatever it is, you might, you just give, without, without a balanced mind, you will just do, and out of that, it won't accumulate any good karma. Sometimes, you like to show off yourself, something like that. So you have to balance.
Okay.
Yes, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So spiritual faculties. Remember this 5 spiritual faculties, Anuma?
Bante, can you think of it like that? The 5 spiritual, the 5 faculties, when you take them, Bante, you have got mindfulness. So you have to balance the faith, the shraddha, you balance with the panna.
Yeah.
So the effort, the virya, you balance with the samadhi.
Sure.
So that is why the spiritual faculties, because we
Okay.
can always go
Now,
to.
And with
alright.
sati also, no?
When you balance, now there are 5. Shraddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, Prajna. Faith, the effort, Shraddha, Virya, Sati,
Samadhi,
awareness, Sati, awareness, Samadhi,
and
concentration, and Prajna, wisdom.
Yes.
Now, when you balance the 5 faculties, what do you get?
with mindfulness, you will be getting and right attention, unison mansikara, you get sati-sampajana, you get wisdom.
Yeah.
Come to the perspective.
Sati Sampajanya. Now, when you balance the spiritual faculties, now let us say Anapana, the breath, right?
Yeah.
There is a little bit of an imbalance. You're trying too hard, you're trying too less, you balance this, you balance this.
Yeah.
And you come into a position where you have the ability of just being with the breath without any sort of rupture of concentration. Then what happens? When you have balance, this insight can arise.
Insight.
This insight,
Prajna, yeah.
vipassana, when you have balance, right? Now, it is like when the water of the lake is still, it is very easy to see fish and all of that which travels underneath, isn't it? Huh? Just so, with the balancing of the spiritual faculties, this is a condition for the arising of prajna.
Yeah.
Prajna meaning wisdom pertaining to the mundane or wisdom pertaining to the supramundane. Right? For that to occur, you have to be able to be with the object. How do you come to be with the object? Balancing the spiritual faculties as and when required. Neither.
Balance in
Right?
mind.
As and when required. When you balance the spiritual faculties, Dhamma, Vichay, Sambodjhanga arises.
But this is because those days normally in English they translate this as clear comprehension. So
Right.
Ajahn Sumedho said comprehension is also using the mind to analyze in
Yeah.
English language. That's why he moved away to intuitive wisdom, intuitive wisdom. So without thinking, that the awareness gives rise to what you also said, the intuition is, so it's intuitive wisdom. That's what the intuition is what developed. The insight is what developed. That's the crux of this whole thing. And that's why he wrote this book also, because normally in the English translations are so poor compared to the Pali word Sati
Dhamma
Sampajanya.
Vichay inni.
Yeah, Dhamma Vicaya and Sati Sampajanya. Everybody knows what it is because the
Yes.
words are so. English and Kivama comprehension for people who know English, comprehension is something very different. Hitem bala bala analyze karna. That is why this word what you are using now is so crucial. It's intuition. It's something that just comes, and he calls it always intuitive wisdom. So with mindfulness, you get this intuition and you get insight. So that's what you're talking about, Bhante. And that's why it's so great to balance all these things. Without using your mind to keep on thinking and analyzing and අර පැත්තටයි මේ පැත්තටයි ඒව තමයි අර ඉංග්‍රීසි වචන වලින් එහෙම තමයි තේරෙන්නේ. That's why we've always been trained what you have to still the mind and go to the silence. And then you
So
get
when that stillness arises through the balance, මෙතනදී අපිට මේ ධම්ම විචය සම්බොධ්ධංගය arises. Now the fourth one is, we know, avoiding foolish people. Avoiding foolish people here, of course, a person who wants or who's dealing with the arising of Dhamma Vichaya or wants to really sort of, shine this light of wisdom or cultivate this light of wisdom within oneself. If that person, let us say, has this inclination, I want to hang out with a clown, right? Right. This is talking about avoiding foolish people. That mind will not be attracted. Right? That mind is somewhere else. Hence, because of the nature of this mind, avoiding those foolish people are the ones who are, of course, getting caught, right? Getting caught to what? Getting caught to traps. Traps of what? Sensuous fear traps and all of these other sensuous traps that we have, right? They are avoiding that foolish person. That this is not foolish with regards to anything else other than this lack of vision within this person, right? Associating with the wise, values time, associates, values the company of the wise, right? Who are able to give you good counsel, right? The sixth, reviving the depth of wisdom. Hmm? Reviving the depth of wisdom which is to say, how did I perceive the aggregates before? How do I perceive the aggregates now? How do I perceive the six sense spaces before? And how do I perceive the six sense bases now? Huh? The reviewing the aspect of which or where your wisdom works also shows you how you can further nurture or polish your Dhamma Vichaya, isn't it? Right? Because let us say, okay, I have a very good understanding about impermanence. However, I do realize that a lot of dukkha does not hit me that much, or I don't experience dukkha all that much, but I am experiencing, let us say, wisdom, right? But how would you know if you don't review? Huh? How would you know if you don't take a look first? That is what is inclined by reviewing the depth of the wisdom. That is in relation to how we perceive meditative elements such as aggregates, elements, sense bases, and etc. 7. Right resolution. Right resolution here is the goal of the goal that one has, right? The goal that one has. When the goal is righteous and selfless, then the distance that one may go with balancing of the faculties and other parts and elements of this practice light up because of the selfless and righteous nature of that goal. For example, if one is doing this, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Bless you, Bhante. Bless you.
If one is doing this, let us say for personal gain, then that distance that one may be able to go through this is short. However, if this is for a righteous reason of, let us say, exiting or wanting to escape the trenches of samsara, of cause and effect, of craving dukkha samsara, right? Because of that, going towards nibbana and having a good understanding of that dhamma, that is referred to as right resolution. Right resolution. Because when Dhamma, for something as strong as Dhamma investigation to arise and now cultivate everyone, just like, for example, by the way that you cough, a doctor might be able to say that something is off, or just by listening to your heartbeat, the doctor may be able to see or, sense, know if something is off. Just so, Dhamma investigation is one's ability to penetratively see reality as it is, to accept it. So, that power of seeing it as it is comes from a lot of courage and, moreover, acceptance. Acceptance for what is. Whether there be 60% or whether there be so much of violence or so much of peace or so much of criminality or so much of the good charitable activities or whatnot. Acceptance for what is, the situation that is. And in the resolution of mind, your right resolution, I want Nibbana, then in a person who's genuinely embracing that path, that person is able to let go of a lot of things, isn't it? Sometimes, even when people do wrong onto you, you're able to let go of a lot. Why? Because you consider let us say, the wrong that you might have done. You consider, why am I going to going to interact with this negativity? I'm not going to seek revenge. I can just let go, right? For whatever reasons, when the mind is strong in resolution, then whatever that comes, it can bear that burden and move forward, right? Bear that burden and move forward, where Dhammavichaya is able to constantly be able to cultivate and arise, everyone. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
Oh, no.
I mean, okay. So, and what bhikkhus is food for the arising of unarisen, awakening factor of zest, priti sabbojjhanga. This zest. Here, there are 11 conditions for the arising with an effort after Dhammavichaya. Ne, පොඩ්ඩක් ඉන්න.
ධම්මවිචය ගැන
Sorry.
ඒකේ බන්තේ
And what bhikkhus is food for the arising of unarisen awakening factor of effort, virya. Virya, sabbojjhanga. There are bhikkhus, the element of initiative, the element of exertion, and the element of strength. And the element of strength. මේකේ නම් ටික මතකද අපිට? ආරම්භික ධාතු,
Nikkama dhatu.
නික්කම ධාතු, and පරාක්කම ධාතු.
පරක්කම ධාතු.
And පරාක්කම ධාතු. Now, for those types of dhatu, right? What are those conditions? There are 11 conditions that lead to the rising of the awakening factor of effort, right? Effort. Reflecting on the fearfulness of the suffering states. If we fall into a state of misery, how much of suffering would it be? 2, seeing the benefits of energy. Seeing the benefits of energy. Seeing the benefits of a mind that is energetic. Right? That is energetic. This is not just energetic where, you are able to go around and do stuff, but this is also the energy of the mind itself. Virya. Reflecting that one is taking the path taken by Buddhas, individuals, Pacceka Buddhas and Arahats. Walk in the noble path. Reflecting on living up to the alms one's receives. That's for the monks, right? Living up to the alms that one receives. Reflecting on the greatness of one's heritage, the Dhamma heritage, the Dhamma that you're professing, following. Reflecting on the greatness of the teacher, the Buddha. Reflecting on the greatness of the Sangha. 8, reflecting on the greatness of one's colleagues in the holy life, Kalyana Mitras. 9, avoiding lazy people. Right, avoiding lazy people. 10, associating with exertive people. Here, people with effort, remember, people with virya in the path. 11, right resolution. Again, a mind that is bent towards the establishing of effort. That right effort for Nibbana. Right? That right effort for Nibbana. Right? Right effort for Nibbana. The awakening factor of pasati.
No, Bante, we have to do 11.
Sorry.
Number 11.
Zest.
Yeah.
Zest.
Zest.
And what bhikkhus is food for the arising of the unarisen awakening factor of zest, right? Zest has 11 factors.
Yes.
Zest arises recollection of the Buddha, recollection of the Dhamma, recollection of the Sangha, recollection of moral virtue, recollection of generosity, recollection of devas,
Devas.
recollection of peace.
Peace.
Now, these are the types of recollections, if you remember. Buddhanusati, Dhammanusati, Sanghanusati, Silanusati, Chaganusati, Devanusati. Peace is
Yeah, again, Sati.
asa peace.
Yeah, again.
Upasamanusati, isn't it? Upasamanusati. Upasamanusati, I think. Right? Peace. Now, 8 is avoiding. Now, peace. These 4. These are the recollections. Now, these recollections are done considering some sort of. Now, when you recollect the Buddha's attributes, you are cultivating, right? You're creating a connection with those attributes of the Buddha. And over that, that zest can arise. Just so to the other recollections that have been mentioned. Number 8, avoiding coarse people. Luke. Here, coarse people means rough, ralu, where it is referring to a attitude of mind where it is not very much towards a happy state of mind, right? A happy state of mind. The English on this, right? Number 9, right? Here, associating with refined, right? Associating with refined people. Now, refined people.
In Dhamma, no, Bante, it has to be refined.
Silavanta minissu.
Silavanta, ne? Refined.
Silvat minissu.
Silvat means
Refined.
refined.
Refined in the Dhamma, refined in the Dhamma, this is referring to, of course, a person who is spirited and inspired by, for example, these aspects that we have spoken of as recollections. Someone that is happy and with that Dhamma in a refined sense where he is comfortable with that Dhamma. Number 10 is reflecting on inspiring sutras. Right? Reflecting on inspiring sutras. Number 11, again, right resolution. Right resolution. Sorry, everyone.
Right resolution.
Right resolution. Right resolution. Now, when one meditates, even in the anapana, as one progresses on the tetrads, as one progresses on the path, as one progresses on the path, there are moments where in our practice, we look at our practice and we may even compare our practice with the past and where you are now, and you feel a sense of gratitude towards, let us say, the teacher, the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, for any parts of these. And when that happens, this automatically almost, it just simply unfolds in this manner. This is the mind when we are practicing that wholesome. But what happens as a result? we feel a deep sense of zest, preeti arising, a deep sense of preeti arising. Even when, for example, the mind is one pointed on the breath and has been there for comfortable for some time, and you're thinking, or you can see the rising and passing away, and you are in no way sort of affected by this. You are nonchalant, you're equanimous. And for that moment, contemplate, or the Buddha Dhamma Sangha comes to your mind. At that moment, you arise that sense of breathing. Sorry, everyone.
Fallen sick.
Blessings on you,
Huh?
Bante.
It's the end of my day now. This is
Yes,
my end
Yes,
of day
yes,
sneeze,
Yes,
right?
Bhante.
we'll
But
do
I'm
next
sorry,
Monday.
but
blessings on you,
with
Bante.
right. So at that moment, the arising of zest occurs because of that pure connection that arises. Metanami ralu coarse luka coarse people that they refer to, these sorts of people, this sort of people in particular is about people who are coarse, that they do not connect in that level with that greater sense of good. Whereas the refined sense, the refined people that they are referring to in this context is people refined in the Dhamma, where they are connected to that sense of good that is there. Okay, that sense of good is there. So we will leave that there, everyone, for today. And
Thank you, Bhante.
we'll see
Teruvan
you
Saranai.
tomorrow for the Thursday class, everyone. Hari,
Thank you.
Teruvan
Teruvan
Saranai.
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 Teruvan Saranai.